yes, LinkedIn is favoring the algorithm of people who are creating that type of content. Every time I go live, my 14,600 and some followers on LinkedIn are notified, even on mobile. I don't pay for that. It's great marketing, and nobody else is doing it.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Extended interview.
Hi, I'm Andrew Moon. I run a company called Orange Nomad. I turn hustling entrepreneurs into calm, unstoppable CEOs.
That's a really good intro. And Andrew, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I have a long list of people that I can't quite believe haven't yet been on the podcast, and your name was right up there at the top. It's an absolute delight to get you on here. I've been following you for a couple of years. Now, I want to talk particularly about LinkedIn today. I think LinkedIn has some huge opportunities for MSPs throughout this year. Before we talk about LinkedIn, which I know is your absolute specialist subject, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your story? Because I know you've been in the tech world since before Windows 95, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I've been an entrepreneur since age 8. So I've been a diehard entrepreneur, run many businesses, but specifically, like the last 25, 30 years, been in the tech space in one facet or another throughout the .com boom, all the way up till I sold my MSP in 2014.
So how long did you have that MSP for?
We were a full-fledged MSP for 10 solid years, from 2004, when my son was 6 months old, when I relaunched Network Logics as a full-fledged MSP. So that was way in the early days where all of the tools, the MSP space was really in its infancy. But grew that to the point where I was able to sell that in 2014. And now I actually help other tech entrepreneurs with the things that I've learned, good, bad, and ugly, over running a business for 10 years.
Yeah, I bet. And I imagine because I did a similar thing. I sold, it wasn't a tech business, it was a marketing agency, but I sold that after 10 years of work. And I think that's almost it's almost like the perfect amount of time, isn't it? That you've got 10 years of energy to put into something. I don't know if you felt when you sold yours, but I certainly felt as though I'd completed the circle, that the business was finished, it could operate without me. And I kind of wasn't ready to put any more time into that business. Is that how you felt with your MSP?
There was a lot of things came to the fore in 2014. I hit 40 years old. It was time. My son was 10 years old. I was to the point where I took it to where I wanted to go. We were just about $1 million, and I didn't know that I wanted to continue on for another 5 or 10 years. For me, I had that itch to get back into a startup. It was just kind of that perfect culmination of timing. My body getting old, all that fun stuff. But yeah, it just made sense.
You say your body getting old. If you turned 40 in 2014, that makes you and I pretty much the same age. So I'm 47 now, turning 48 in the summer.
I turned 48 in a couple weeks. So I know this podcast will go out after my birthday, but yeah. In 2 weeks, I turned 48.
Okay.
So.
Clearly, those few extra weeks that you've got on me must make such a difference to you. Right, let's talk about LinkedIn. So, as you just said, we are actually recording this in the middle of February, and we record really far ahead with this podcast. Now, the reason I state that is obviously this interview isn't being played out till May, but we're going to be talking about some stuff which LinkedIn is releasing, and I know that LinkedIn has been working on this for some time, but obviously we can't guarantee 100% that everything will be in May exactly as we think it's going to be when we're recording this in February. So we'll talk about the new cool stuff in a second. Let's just first of all talk about LinkedIn overall for MSPs, because you are pretty much known, Andrew, as the go-to guy for LinkedIn for MSPs.
It kind of came about by accident. The whole, coaching and training on LinkedIn. I used LinkedIn extensively. I kind of stumbled onto a methodology, a framework while I was running my MSP. Like everybody else, I tried every single piece of marketing or every marketing tactic known to man. Blew through tons of cash on coaching, training, wasted marketing efforts until I came upon, again, I stumbled upon it by accident, really, with LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn since like 2006. Really didn't start using it extensively until probably 2011, 2012. But I stumbled upon the power of LinkedIn when I was planning a lunch and learn. We did in-person events. That was really one of the things I enjoyed with running an MSP. But where I stumbled on LinkedIn is we were a couple weeks out from an event. I only had probably 7 or 8 people registered. So I decided I was going to get on LinkedIn and send personal invitations out to people that I had connected with over the last couple years prior to that. Didn't think anything of it, went home for the night, came back in the next morning. I had like 27 registrations and my LinkedIn inbox was full of messages, and they read pretty similar, but I probably had 50 or 60 messages. People said, "Hey, thank you for inviting me to this event. I can't come to this one, but unfortunately, please invite me to the next one." And it was just one after another after another. And you and I are in the marketing game, and you know that the hardest thing with marketing is getting a response of any kind.
Mm.
And that's where the light bulb came on for me, was maybe there is something to my LinkedIn network. Maybe there is something to this LinkedIn thing. So I started with LinkedIn on our next Lunch and Learn the next quarter. We put, I think, 55 people in a room for a Lunch and Learn event. And that was by far up to that time my most successful event, strictly off of one thing. And that was my LinkedIn marketing. We didn't do anything else. I wanted to see if there was something to this LinkedIn thing. So I started documenting everything we were doing with LinkedIn. I regularly did outreach, made connections, and spent Thursday afternoons having coffee meetings with people, and having coffee meetings with people who may not become clients. And it was just an enormous thing came of that. It's just the momentum that we got. We got referrals. I got leads from everywhere, all because of how I interacted with people on LinkedIn and went about it with the attitude of serving and creating connections and relationships first.
And obviously that was, well, you started doing that dramatically a number of years in the past. And since then, of course, Microsoft has acquired LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has definitely evolved in many ways. I've seen that it's in parts not copied, but been inspired by Facebook's algorithms, because LinkedIn works in very similar ways to Facebook sometimes, but it's also gone off and done its own thing. As a usable tool, as a lead generation tool, do you think LinkedIn has more power today than when you first started using it, or has it gone off in a completely different direction?
It was 2012 when that light bulb came on for me. Here we are 10 years later, and we're still talking about LinkedIn being a wide open platform. And especially for our audience, which are IT providers, it is still a wide open platform. So I think, given the things that LinkedIn has pulled in, especially in the last 2 years since COVID, I'm excited about where they're going with the platform. I'm excited about some of the things that they're rolling out are usable tools that nobody else is doing, especially in the IT space. We're going to talk about a couple of them today, but I think it's exciting if I'm an MSP, because here is a platform where I can stand out from everybody else because nobody's doing it. Everybody's afraid to get on there and create relationships and put themselves out there.
Well, let me ask you about that. What's the fear? What is it, do you think, that stops MSPs from fully embracing LinkedIn and throwing themselves into it? Is it a worry that, I can't do this, I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't, or is it just a case that they don't really understand the platform, or is it a fear that actually everyone's already doing it, even though that's not the case?
It's a combination of the two. I think the fear comes in all of the noise and different approaches to LinkedIn. I mean, there's LinkedIn gurus. You and I both know that there's different methodologies with how to tackle LinkedIn. But one of the things that has stood the test of time is the ability to create and nurture relationships. It's time consuming. Everybody wants the easy button, especially when it comes to lead generation. So I'm going to get on LinkedIn, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the easy button and leads are going to start rolling in. But I think the fear is putting themselves out there and being authentic. And that's one of the first things that I teach, especially IT providers with their personal LinkedIn profile, is to make it personal. Tell us about why you got in business. Tell us what is it that you do that makes you different than every other IT professional, and especially the folks that are running IT firms. A CEO wants to see another CEO, not a technician. And I think that's the fear, is people don't feel that they have a good enough story. But when you dig in, you find out how a lot of these ladies and gentlemen have started their IT practices and their reasons why. they're incredibly interesting stories. But I think it's fear that I got to get on there and I got to sell because that's why I'm here. But when you take it from a different perspective, that you're there to create a relationship and add value, that's when the platform completely changes for you.
Yeah, so it becomes a way of reaching people and a way of starting that engagement with them rather than a selling platform. That makes complete sense. So let's talk about these two big things that LinkedIn is launching this year, and they both sit under something called Creators. Can you tell us what the Creators program is?
That was one of the things. I think they launched it like last August. They enabled creator mode, and I think there was a lot of ambiguism as to what that was and what were the benefits. They weren't real clear when they launched it, but now it is becoming more clear, and they're being much more defined in the things that they're rolling out. The two of the biggest benefits that they've just rolled out, which I have seen tremendous benefit for, one of them is newsletters and the ability to come up with, put out newsletters, not only for your personal profile, but also your company pages, but LinkedIn live streaming. I think that they have finally figured out that there is some market share to live streaming. And I've been doing it since April Fool's Day of 2020. I went live for the first time on a regular basis on LinkedIn. I've had LinkedIn Live since like 2019, but didn't really start taking it seriously till 2020. But an amazing thing has come from that is the community that we've drawn from doing that on a regular basis. And I've also generated business from it. And I do absolutely zero selling at all on those live streams. But it's building that know, like, and trust factor. You and I both know it doesn't get any better than video. I mean, people see you, they see how you interact, they get to know you as a person. And if that clicks, what are they going to do when they need what you have to offer? You are the first person that they think of. So I think that in itself has got me excited. I've been waiting for them to really take that seriously, the live streaming component. And I think the other fear with that on MSPs is, what if nobody shows up? Or how do I do it? What are the technical aspects of doing live streaming? It's really not any different than doing a webinar. It's just you're doing it live. And you do a webinar generally live. It's the same thing. It's just different mechanism, different tools. But I think that is it is a wild west on the LinkedIn if you're an MSP to educate people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people want, is that education on what they do.
I completely agree. And live streaming is terrifying to many people because it's live. I was a radio presenter for 10 years. And the funny thing is, what you find when you record content is that it takes you longer because you can stop and go back and do it better. Whereas when you're doing something live, you tend to perform at a higher level anyway. That's certainly what I've found. And I think live streaming is a beautiful thing because you just need to be yourself. You don't have to be a polished presenter. You can just be yourself. What's interesting about LinkedIn Live, and it's only really in the last couple of weeks that I've noticed, as I've been in LinkedIn, it's been popping up and saying, this person who's your contact is live right now. And in the same way that, this was brand new to Facebook back in 2014, 2015. I remember distinctly for the first time, being on Facebook and seeing it come up and saying one of your friends was live and being able to actually watch a live video stream with a friend. Obviously, LinkedIn, it's a more business orientated one. What's really good about this, and I know this is the same with newsletters as well, is that algorithmically, LinkedIn is putting a lot of attention on this. So when you go live on LinkedIn, its algorithm is notifying more people, and it's trying harder to get people to watch your live stream. When you publish a newsletter, and we've only just got into newsletters ourselves and got our members of our MSP Marketing Edge service into it. When you publish a newsletter, it puts that content in front of more people. It emails out all of your connections. It wants you to have subscribers. So I guess when you talk about the Wild West here, are you saying because LinkedIn wants these new creator mode features to work, that's why it's trying a lot harder to put eyeballs on the stuff that you create in creator mode?
It is. And it's, like I said, I've studied that. Where I've really been following our metrics as to what is the engagement on our live streams. versus just, again, like you said, that pre-recorded content. They see what's going on over in YouTube land. I mean, they see that people going live on YouTube and how much engagement that brings. It's just the excitement that you get from a live stream is completely different than a Zoom webinar. I mean, it is really hard to explain that dynamic, but yes, LinkedIn has figured out, okay, there's something to this. I forget the name of the company they just bought in August as well. But they are some type of software that for short form content. So those videos that are like LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts, something that's a minute to a minute and a half. They went and bought a company to develop. That's coming to LinkedIn this year. I've started to see some of those things, but yes, LinkedIn is favoring the algorithm of people who are creating that type of content. And like you said, every time I go live, my 14,600 and some followers on LinkedIn are notified, even on mobile. I don't pay for that. I don't, it's great marketing and nobody else is doing it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You couldn't. Well, I'm sure on one day that LinkedIn will find a way for us to pay for this, but yeah, I think you couldn't pay for that. Getting in early on these things is incredible. Talking about LinkedIn Shorts, I've had quite a few people ask me recently about TikTok. TikTok, of course, is a short video clips platform which is primarily aimed at tweens, the pre-teen audience. Although it is used by a surprisingly large range of people, I don't see that as a particularly useful business tool right now. Not for MSPs anyway, because I don't think it's how you would reach proper decision makers. But I guess if they're going to put short videos onto LinkedIn and algorithmically give them that amount of attention, that could be an incredible tool in the future as well. I'm going to go back on some of the things that you said earlier. So you said you're an entrepreneur from the age of 8. And it's fascinating actually when I talk to lots and lots of exciting, interesting people who have shown entrepreneurial spark through their childhood, and it's fascinating when you go back. Whether it's someone that's bought sweets at a wholesale price and sold them at a retail price in their school because there was a limited supply or something else. There's always something. So what were you up to as an 8-year-old that made you realize that being an entrepreneur was actually a very exciting thing to do?
Well, I grew up in a very poor family. It was a large, poor family. Most everybody in the towns around us were either steel workers or coal miners. And I knew at age 8, my dad worked for the railroad, who provided all the services to steel mills and coal mines. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go in the ground. I didn't want to work in a blast furnace my whole life. So it excited me to do. Funny you touched on that. That was actually one of the first businesses that we ran when I was 8. I had an older brother and 2 older cousins. So we were always trying to find some way to make money, some way. But that was one of the first ones that we did, was selling candy at school. We found the first warehouse club in Pittsburgh where my dad would pick up candy at very cheap prices, bulk, and we would sell it at school. So that was my first taste into that. We made bumper stickers for like Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, all that fun stuff. But that's when I knew, when I rode out of the Hills department store with my first bike that I bought, that's when I knew. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be in control of my destiny. I want to be in control of my paycheck. I don't want to go punch a clock for somebody else.
Yeah. And, I think they should teach that to kids at school. They certainly don't do that here in the UK. I don't know how much entrepreneurial mindset training happens in the US, but what happened to you is you saw a direct link between I can control something here, and the work that I've done has directly resulted in a reward with no cap, as you say, with no one else controlling me. And I think once you've learned that lesson as a kid, it's very hard to ignore that. Does that kind of entrepreneurial mindset training happen in the US?
It doesn't, unfortunately. My son just graduated from high school, and that's one of the things that I feel fortunate in, that I've been able to teach him. I don't want him to have to feel like he's got to go punch a clock for somebody else and let somebody else control his destiny. And that's what's exciting to me. He sees the difference. His friends who are going and working at McDonald's, not that there's anything wrong with that. He knows he doesn't want to do that. He's going to get into the trades. He's going to run his own electrical firm. So he wants to get into doing, solar installations. With the electric vehicle market due to rush out, people are going to need solar chargers for their homes. And that's what I told him. Hey, if I was going to be an electrician right now, that is a specialty. That is a niche that I would go after. And he's excited about that. He's going through his, starting an apprenticeship. And I said, that is a market that not very many people are doing. So you specialize in that and own it. And I think we're just starting to see that. The Ford electric truck that's coming out, GM's coming out. I think that when that hits the working class market, especially here in the Midwest, that's when we're really going to see that boom of, EV electric vehicles, not just the Teslas running around town.
Yeah, no, massively. I got a Tesla 3 months ago, and it's completely changed the way I view it. And here in the UK, there's a tax benefit if you're a business owner and you can put your car through the business. You normally get taxed quite heavily, which is why business owners don't do it. But not with electric vehicles, EVs. I pay the equivalent of $50 a year tax to put the car through my company. So it's actually cheaper for me to have an electric vehicle. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be a massive explosion. Your massive explosion in EV charging installations. Your son has probably learnt more about being an entrepreneur from watching you. And in fact, I know, we're recording this. It's night in the UK, as you can see. My 11-year-old is just over there because I work in the sort of the family space, and I love the fact that she can hear me talking about business and marketing and entrepreneurial stuff, because I'm sure some of that is going to stay around in the future. Right, let's get back to LinkedIn. So you're Mr. LinkedIn. You've been on LinkedIn for 1,000 years, as you already admitted. How long do you spend on LinkedIn on an average day?
I spend every bit of at least a minimum of an hour and a half to 2 hours on LinkedIn.
Okay, so it's not too excessive then.
No, most of it is I have got scheduled periods throughout the day where I do social media. I kind of segment my day. But I'm on there first and foremost to interact with other people's content. It's really not about me. And if you'll notice, if you follow me I don't do any selling. Mm. I'm like, I rarely get on there and do a promo for, a coaching cohort that we're doing or a course that I'm launching. Those are very few and far between. It's about, giving back, giving everything that I know about running businesses through good times and bad times, and how to survive that, especially the last couple of years. That's what it's about. My MSP was 4 years old during the 2008 recession. It was rough. And I remember how lonely that felt. I remember there weren't MSP groups. There weren't, everything that's available today, like the Tech Tribe and places like that. You basically felt alone. And that's what I wanted to be able to do, is give back everything that I learned to help people get through this transition period that we're in, so that on the other side of this, one, they're standing upright, but two, they feel good about the businesses that they're in, the life that they're building.
Yeah. No, that's great. Do you get to a point of your day when you're just so tired of LinkedIn that you need to walk away from it? Because I do the same as you, not nowhere near the extreme, nowhere near the investment in time that you do. But I have scheduled parts of my day where I'll check in, I have some Facebook groups, a client only one, and then one for any MSP, and I'll check in on LinkedIn, and I do, it's 8:30 at night here, and I haven't yet done my end of day checks on social media. I'm going to play my tiny violin now. This is so difficult, but I'm kind of tired. I'm at the end of the day, and I'm like, okay, I know I need to go and check the Tech Tribe. I need to go and check LinkedIn. I need to go and check Facebook. It could be a 10-minute check, or it could be an hour, depending on what I find. For if someone's asked a really obvious marketing question and there hasn't been a big answer yet, I'll sit and put a reply together for 20 or 30 minutes. And I know you do the same. But do you get to that point where you're just it's like, I've had enough LinkedIn. I've got to get off LinkedIn now.
Just like with anything, I think when it gets to that point, I don't mindlessly scroll. I think that's why I did before. And it's just, you could waste hours and hours. I look for those conversations. I look for those things that I can be a part of. And then I try to turn it off. because I think it's just too much of it. Anything LinkedIn, is just one platform. But I feel pretty good. Like I said, LinkedIn, I get less tired of. I can't be on Facebook more than 10 minutes. And it's only for the couple groups of vendors that I belong to. That's the only reason I'm on there.
Yeah, fascinating. So many people are saying that right now. So many people of our kind of age and our responsibility levels that they use Facebook professionally just to stay in touch with groups or whatsoever. What do you think the next? I mean, this is a real crystal ball question, but I think you're probably one of the best people in our world suited to answer it. What do you think the next 5 to 10 years has in store for LinkedIn? Because Microsoft has, been an incredible steward so far. I know it's only owned LinkedIn for, was it 2016 they bought it, something like that?
I believe so.
Yeah, and they have done, and they've turned it into an incredible B2B. It's no longer just just the online version of your offline connections, which is what it used to be. It's become a true content platform. I remember a phrase that LinkedIn pushed a couple of years ago, that they wanted LinkedIn to be a place where you have people talking about things that matter to you, and I think they're absolutely going well in that direction. What do you think's coming up in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, I think, for me, the way that I see creator mode is really just touching off a new direction that they're going in. I mean, you'll probably notice that too. So they're going less in terms of the direct connections, and you're going to a follower methodology, similar to, YouTube. But I think by doing that, they're going to be able to curate that content that you want to see, so that the platform is much more valuable to you. And I like that. I actually just took a screenshot the other day. I saw it on mobile, but it was the first time I had ever seen it on LinkedIn. And I like the fact that they're going that direction. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, it was the posts in my feed today are a productive use of my time. And it was, disagree, neutral, and agree. It was just a very quick poll in the middle of my feed. And I've not seen that up to this point. So I think that's what they realize. People don't have all day. They're not going to come on there and mindlessly scroll like they would on Facebook or Instagram. They're only there for a short period of time. And how do I get the most relevant content in front of them the quickest? So I think creator mode is just, like I said, it especially when creator mode, you get to tell what topics that is in hashtags. You get to put in, I think it's like 5 hashtags of the content that you're there to talk about. Mm. So they're using that mechanism to be able to curate that content. So if you're into marketing and I'm a creator that has the hashtag marketing, they're going to put a lot more of that content. And that I've seen studies have done, especially the last 6 months. The posts where I have my hashtags in there get a lot more engagement than the ones where I don't have any of those hashtags in there.
That's interesting.
So the data is telling me that, yes, they are focusing heavily on pushing that content and getting it in front of more eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah, so hashtags are a lot more important. I think it's quite instructive as well how much effort Microsoft is putting into integrating LinkedIn with Teams. So just as of time of recording, which of course is mid-February, they've just announced that there's going to be a basic connection between your LinkedIn and your Teams, so that when you're having a one-on-one chat with a colleague, up will come your LinkedIn profile or whatever your latest LinkedIn thing is. And I think that's Microsoft dipping its toe in the water. I mean, these must be two physical different departments, of Microsoft working together. But I think you can look forward a number of years and see that Teams is very clearly right at the heart of 365. Teams is very much the big bet that Microsoft has clearly placed its long-term future on as it being the place where everything else is going to integrate into Teams. They seem to be doing more on Teams than anything else, and I think bringing LinkedIn into Teams is just it's one of those no-brainers. It's a very, very obvious thing to do.
And I think you'll see more of that cross-pollination of live streaming in Teams as well at some point. So that's kind of where I see that, of being able to do internal live events. I think that platform will be the mechanism that they use to push out more live content as well.
Yeah. But they'll mess it up at some point, though. Microsoft always just have a few missteps at some point. Yeah. And I say this as someone who can't stand Teams, but hey, that's just my personal thing. I like LinkedIn. Same here.
Teams is
just just anyway, we can save that discussion for another day. I just want to talk to you finally about your coaching work. So you work with MSPs. You work, as you say, in cohorts. You having been a successful MSP owner yourself, having exited that business, what are the things you commonly see? Because I have peer groups as well. So I have MSP group. I've never had an MSP, but I've owned and run and sold businesses, and I think that gives me 90% of the 90% of the experience the MSP is going through. All that I'm missing is just the hell of technology and the hell of running a very difficult, demanding service business. What do you commonly see that holds MSPs back?
If you ask any MSP, and it was the same when I ran mine, and if somebody asked, what's your biggest pain point right now in running the actual business side of things, it's always marketing. It's always marketing and sales, and it continues to be. But yet at the same time, I think that I used it as an excuse for quite a long time when I ran my MSP. I'm not a marketer. I'm not a salesperson. So I'm never going to be good at those things. But when I truly sat down and became a student of marketing, that's when I fell in love with it. I actually fell in love with doing the marketing, engagement, conversations, connections, more than the tech stuff. It kind of was a mind shift for me. The last 2 years I ran my MSP, my mindset was I'm going to be a marketing and sales company that just happens to do IT. And I had a blast with it. I mean, we started doing live events, in-person events, and that was what I had the most fun with. And guess what? We sold business every single time I ran one of those events, and it was easy. It was a heck of a lot easier than sending out 2,000 mailers and doing follow-up calls and hoping something sticks to the wall, hoping you turn a customer out of it. But it's doing the things that people are afraid to do. And I think that's still the case in marketing. Everybody wants the easy button with marketing. And you and I both know that doesn't exist. If somebody came up with an easy button that could hand deliver warm leads that were ready to sign up for your MSP service today, that person would have their own island and would be able to charge whatever they wanted for that service. It doesn't exist. And I think that is the common misconception that I still see in the MSP game. Is that if I go get this tool or I do this tactic, leads are just going to drop in my lap. And I think that the other thing that I still see is what a true lead actually is. The common misconception in the MSP space, a lead is somebody who's ready to sign up for my managed services right now and willing to write me a check today the first time I meet with them. Those people don't generally exist. There's a whole process that has to take place in between that. But I think it's patience and really understanding how marketing works are probably the two biggest pain things that I see for still to this day in the MSP space.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You said earlier that one of the challenges on LinkedIn is to get people to know, like, and trust you, which is such a great phrase. And that the challenge from getting someone from being a suspect to being a lead, to being a prospect, to being a client, to being a bonded client, and the bonded clients are the ones that stay for 15 years. The challenge there is having the relationship with them and building that trust at the point they're ready, willing, and able to actually take action and switch to you. And it's an incredibly complicated, difficult process, which we, as business owners, we kind of throw ourselves in, and we get some wins early on, and so we think it's quite simple. And I think that's where, and it's not just MSPs. I think it's all small business owners who go out and do their own selling don't really understand that through the sheer persistence of their energy and their passion for the thing that they're selling, that they actually fire through quite a complex process. This is something which professional salespeople have to learn the hard way, because they don't typically have that passion and the competence that the business owner has. Let's wrap up here, Andrew. You've been an absolute superstar to give so much of your time, and to give, although you do it on LinkedIn regularly, to do it on video as well. I just want to touch on your branding. So you do have some of the best branding I've ever seen. Your company's called Orange Nomad. As we can see here, you've got the orange headset, you've got the orange microphone, there's an orange clock in the back, you've got an orange light on your Mac. Let's see your shirt as well, which says Team Orange. just amazing. I remember watching a video you did. I think it was in the Tech Tribe about a year ago, where you sort of showed everyone your AV setup, and it was you've just got the most perfect setup. And in fact, you inspired me to go and improve mine. So do you work very hard on your branding, or is it actually just a case of that when you see something that you think, oh, that's quite cool, that would look good in the background, that you just pick it up and you're just doing it bit by bit?
I actually picked up the orange thing with my last tech business. Like, my logo was orange. Our shirts were bright orange. So we had a bright orange shirt and black tactical pants. That was my uniform. And that's what we were known for. But that visibility, it dawned on me. I didn't think anything. I love the color orange. It's the color of a good mood. But when people would send you pictures, they'd post things on Instagram. People still send me things in the mail that are orange. That's when I knew, okay, that is brand. I'm never going to have a logo like Starbucks or Coca-Cola, but I can own a color. And it's very simple. As you can see, it's very simple to do, but it sticks. People know it. And people, when you think of something orange, anybody that I'm connected to will generally think of me.
Yep.
It's good marketing. And it's a sickness too. As you can see, everything's orange and black. So.
Your family must love it at Christmas time. They're like, oh, Dad's so easy to buy for. We just got to buy stuff that's orange and black. It's easy.
Exactly. Andrew, yes. Andrew, so actually, the microphone cover was a gift, by the way, too.
Oh, was it?
Chris Tim. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know Chris. Yeah, so that's a great gift. What a great spot from him. I mean, you can get. You see, I've gone for a yellow one just because it made the blue stand out on the writing. But I don't really want to own yellow, but I need to pick a color to own. That's for sure. It's such a clever idea. Andrew, thank you very much. I know you mentioned it earlier on, but it's been a long time since you mentioned it. Just very briefly again, tell us how you work with MSPs and give us your website address.
I work with MSPs. My goal is to turn you into a tired, overworked, hustling entrepreneur, MSP business owner, and turn you into a calm business owner. So I do that through courses. I do that through group coaching. And you can reach me at orangenomad.com.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Extended interview.